Special guest this morning, well, it's taken a lot of courage because he would love to stick this ball right down Rawlo's neck. It's a very warm welcome from the Queenscliff Cooters. Yes, they finished on top of the ladder in A grade in the Bellarine Peninsula Cricket Association. Joe Farrell, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Graham and Tim. Thanks for having me along this morning. Look, I wouldn't go so far to say that I would shove that down your throat, but look, you know, we've just won a few more games than we've lost, and things seem to have fallen in place.
And the Bellarine Peninsula Cricket Association in the A grade, well, the top six is settled, Tim, and after a great performance last week, even though Rawlo did predict around about Christmas time they wouldn't even make the six, Queenscliff Cooters have finished on top of the ladder.
Joe's boys, Queenscliff, jumped to the top of the ladder because they played so fantastically and had a pretty easy win over Newcombe, jumping ahead of Colindina to claim the minor premiership. But
Queenscliff take on Port Arlington, and this one is going to be played at Queenscliff, the three top home sides getting the home finals. Joe, I'll throw this one to you. Are you confident?
At this stage, I think we're pretty confident. Look, we had a pretty good win over Port Arlington the last time we played them, which was only a few rounds ago. I think it's fair to say that they'll be a lot harder to get on top this time round. You've got Vass there. He's made, just come off a good century, and it's good to see Pudge. He's certainly he made a 50 odd too. So I think they're certainly going to be one of the sleeping giants there that could certainly make an impression in the finals.
We'll go to a break on the Geelong Cricket Show. I'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to our Geelong Cricket Show here on this Saturday morning. Our special guest, Joe Farrell, he's happy and smiling because Queenscliff this afternoon in the A grade take on a game in the quest for finals, and also, Joe, your B grade finished in third position, so finals fever around Queenscliff Cricket Club.
Yeah, that's right. Look, as a whole, as a club, I think we've done pretty well this year. I think we'd be close to taking out the club championship, I think it's called. I haven't looked at the stats or anything like that, so I think we'd have to be pretty well placed. One's finished on top, B grade, I think they were second or so, and thirds unfortunately fell out of contention, but D grade also, I believe they were finished on top as well. So we've had a pretty good year as a club. Picked up a lot of young guys, a lot of old guys. So there's a good blend in the club. Look, I think we've done pretty well so far, but look, it all comes down to the next sort of 3 weeks, and that's where it all counts.
having your B grade playing, Joe, that's got to be a positive thing for the club, considering that if a guy does drop out of form, and I know there was a few guys that obviously with yourself and Toby, as I mentioned, slotting back into that side today, potentially for Queenscliff, a couple of guys do drop out, so they get the opportunity to keep playing. And if someone really does find some form over the finals in B grade, or if your A grade does end up losing, unfortunately, dropping a couple of games, there's that opportunity to drop back as well. So a very healthy position for the club to be in. Yeah,
look, at the end of the day, it's the flexibility that enables you in selection, picking your side. So that's a good thing. I can't see it as a bad thing. I think it promotes good, healthy competition within the club.
There's been no concern really about your bowling throughout the year. Your bowling stocks have been fairly deep, and you have been bowling sides out. But probably when you weren't really winning games, you dropped to 1 and 3 after 4 rounds, and then haven't dropped a game since then. The thing that really has impressed me since you did drop that game in round 4 is your batting, and it really has come along in leaps and bounds. You weren't making winning scores, but we saw a couple of weeks ago against Port Arlington down on your home pitch, you made 390. So you, in terms of your batting, you're going with a lot of confidence, I think, in that game today.
Yeah, essentially what I put that down to is we had a really light pre-season, so the confidence in the batting wasn't quite there at the start of the year. Now that the year's sort of rolled through, we've managed to get a lot of time out in the middle, and that's it's certainly provided dividends here now.
And the guy that I'm thinking could be potentially a big wild card for you in finals as well, and really probably looking to step up himself, is your brother Michael, who had a fantastic year last year, but hasn't really made as many runs as probably expected of him. But I think he'll be looking for a really big final series, and if he can step up, that's just an added bonus for the Queenscliff Cricket Club over that finals period.
Yeah, look, I don't know about that. Look, he's certainly got ability. Whether he puts his mind to it and really shows true grit, look, in the next 2 to maybe 3 games, if we're lucky enough to get that far, we'll certainly find out.
Joe, as a club, you've been obviously very successful this year, but geographically, when people stand back and look at the borough of Queenscliff, it doesn't seem to be a geographic area where you've got a lot of young families coming through the ranks, your junior development. So it must make it a bit difficult from a club perspective to spread your web very wide to attract juniors and senior players.
Yeah, look, over the years, certainly we tend to lose a lot of players in that under-17s bracket. Certainly our under-11s, you know, and Milo cricket, we get 40, 50 plus down at those stages. But certainly 17 years old, you know, you've got a lot of the guys, they go and surf and whatnot. So there is that real struggle to hold them in there, because once you lose them, you do lose them. So, but the good ones tend to stay on, and we've got a good crop of young guys coming through the club now.
Let's take you back to round 4, Joe. As I said, you're 1 of 3 at that stage. Did you dream that you could put yourselves in the position that you now have, minor premiers, and a lot of people now eyeing you off as potentially the biggest threat in the final series and possibly one of the real premiership favourites as well in the Ballerina? At that stage, did you think that you could put yourselves in the position that you are in now?
Probably not, to be honest. I wouldn't have thought that I'd be sitting here today saying, look, you know, we finished up on top, to be honest. Look, a few results went our way, I guess, at the end of the day. The ladder's very, very, very tight. There's only probably 3 games that separate, sort of 6th through to 1st. So cricket's a funny game. Only a few results have to go your way, and all of a sudden you're the front runners. So I wouldn't say we're the front runners, but we're certainly we're sitting in a good spot. We've got 2 home finals, which I believe that's how it works. Which, you know, it have to be an advantage playing at home.
How much of an advantage does that give you? And I've spoken to your coach, Tim Clark, a couple of times, and you do have one of those all-weather wickets, which he doesn't think provides you with too much of an advantage, but obviously the other side's playing the flatter sort of wickets, so there's a little bit of an advantage there, but also just having those home surrounds and the comforts of playing at home has to give you some advantage going into finals. Yeah,
it certainly is a different wicket than the flatter wickets. It's got a little bit more bounce, but in saying that, if you're a 2-dimensional player, you should have no problems playing on that surface, as opposed to being a 1-dimensional player and, you know, getting on the front foot all the time. I probably look at it, you're not saying that this is the analogy, but you've got the Sydney wicket and you've got sort of the whacker. I mean, I couldn't see them changing those wickets.
Do you feel like finishing top, there's possibly a little bit of a target on your back now, maybe a little bit of added pressure having claimed that minor premiership, or is it really, it's that tight that I think a lot of people in the Ballerina do recognise that there's probably 6 sides there, irrespective of where they did finish after the home and away season, that could finish, and most of the coaches I do speak to say it's a whole different ball game come finals.
Yeah, definitely I would agree that there is a target on our backs, but look, certainly in the last 6 weeks, no one's really given us any credit. Hopefully we do get some sort of respect that we do deserve, and I think we do deserve a little bit of respect. But at the end of the day, it's a game out there. Things can happen. You just got to get on your front foot and play the best you can.
And what about your role in this Queenscliff Premiership campaign as well, Joe? Obviously, you lead up the bowling side of things, but what do you see as being the real key? Is it about those batsmen continuing to fire, or making sure potentially if you do end up bowling today against Port Arlington that you keep them to a score that's manageable, maybe about 150 between that and 200, and hoping that the batsmen can get it on Sunday?
Oh, look, I think Port Arlington, if they were batting this morning, they'll make more than 150. I think the key to finals, if you've got one player down, the other player in the side can step up and fill that void. And I think we've done that during the year, and hopefully we continue that today.
As Rollo eats some humble cricket ball. After that, we'll go to a break. We'll be back with more after this. And if you'd like to win a game of Lords of Cricket, one of the greatest card games that has ever been invented here in Geelong by Paul Friend, and we thank them very much, send your answer into guest media, GESTMEDIA, at bigpond.com to this question. And the question is, who finished up top of the ladder in the Bellarine Peninsula Cricket Association A-grade competition at the end of the home and away season. No correspondence shall be entered into from any member of the said club. Thank you very much to our special guest this morning, Joe Farrell. All the very best for your finals campaign, mate, and we wish you very, very well indeed.
Thanks for inviting me along. Pleasure.